I am the president of an engineering firm here in Pottstown, and we are 10 years old, and I can give you the whole 30-second speech or the 3-minute speech, whatever, about my company, and that's really not what you're here for. The business is 10 years old, and it was tough getting here. And as a small business owner or a leader in an organization, whether it be chamber or otherwise, if you're a leader in your life somewhere, you know the challenges and yet the appearance that you need to keep everything calm and cool. So the last 10 years have taught me a lot, and I could look back on those title words, and I can tell you a little bit about me and my story for each one of them. The word shift, you know, we as women in leadership positions have to learn to adapt. Whether it's a gender thing or just a life thing, we have our sets of responsibilities, and we have our positions in each of our families, and those things are really important, and we have to learn how to shift and adapt. And so in 2008, the company I was working for started a steep decline, and by 2010, they were out of business, but I could see this coming, and I had always wanted to do things better and make a mark and value in my daily life. And so I made the shift and started the business, but really that shift and any other shift that in my life really required a lot of faith, and my faith has gotten me through in the really tough times, and I celebrate my faith in the really good times. So when I think about shift, I think about either whether I'm making the shift or if the shift is thrust upon me. Either way, the ability to adapt for me has been through faith and just realizing that every day is one day and the next day will be a new day. So for me, making the shift to start my own business was freeing and exciting and terrifying, all of those things. And I'm sure I've aged more than 10 years through the last 10 years, but it's been very rewarding. I really enjoy the team, the people that work for me, and that's really where that's the most valuable for me is I have told someone the other day, the people come to work for everybody else. They're other teammates. They don't come to work for me. They come to work for everybody else. So again, the faith to keep going in some really dark times. 2018 was really rough on us. And if that didn't put us down, COVID wouldn't either. And so we've made it through the last several months. Again, still thinking about shifting and just relying on our faith to steer us through. So the word grow was something else that really touched me. And we have a saying in my house that what you feed grows, and it's really true. So when you focus on all of the right things, then it will grow, and whether you intend to do it or not, if your energy and focus is in one particular direction, things will happen that way. And I was just actually reminded of this as well today. Focus has really been tough over the last several months, you know, and I don't know how focus gets real tough when the same four walls is what you see all the time. It should be really easy to focus, but it's been tough over the last several months. But in order to grow through, especially this current situation, I think everyone would benefit on finding a really specific focus and spending a lot of time and energy driving that, and it will carry on. And that brings me to the third word, which is thrive. And that's, again, very important at this time that we're living through. How do you thrive and not just survive? And we've made some really bold moves in the last few months, just here at the engineering firm, just to take that chance to thrive. And we can't thrive without thinking back to the shifting and growing, and those things all really do tie together. So we've decided to run at the economy and try to catch the next wave, and not wait for it to pick us up and carry us through. So what I mean by that is we've expanded some services, and I can't go into all the details, but really thinking about how to come out of this fire like a phoenix. We've spent a lot of time thinking about the way to win, the way to thrive. And this, since this is a chamber and business organization, many of us, we're embarrassed at times to say we want to win. But I think a lot of us, especially if you have ambitions, you have to look at that and that approach. So thrive, and we talked about during the REACH committees different words, and I think thrive meant a lot of things to a lot of people. That could be personal health. I've had some struggles in that arena lately, and it's tough during a time when everything is so strange to take care of ourselves, and we're caring for a lot of other people. But I've had to learn that thriving isn't just what the business is doing. It is, what are my children doing, and how are they doing during all of this situation, and how do I feed them, and how do I grow them, and how do they also relate to the shift that's going on right now. So for thrive, that meant a lot. That every day is, I wake up and I want to thrive. I want to feel good, and I want to conquer the world. So, and figure out the world's problems. So the word thrive means a lot. And Eileen and I have had a lot of Zoom calls lately. I just wrote down that I need to send you something nice for Zoom fatigue, because you have got to be exhausted. But we talked about, in one of these board calls somewhere along the time, who's going to come out of this situation right now that we're all in is those that have hustle. It's those that are figuring it out. And so it's been exciting to be part of some of these organizations that are starting, these groups that are really connecting through Zoom. We have a CEO group here. It's been really, it's very interesting to see how people are connecting and what they're sharing. But we all agree that people who learn how to adapt, shift, and reinvent themselves and catch that first wave, they're going to make it out of this okay. They're going to thrive, but it takes a whole lot of hustle. And so a lot of us are exhausted. And again, it's hard to find focus in the same four walls all the time. But I think this opportunity here to share with each other hopefully will be encouraging. And I thank you for listening to my story.
April, just to go back to our lunch conversation, not that you need to go into any great detail about the specific goals or how close you are to reaching any of them, but I was just really, I just found your process, or just the fact that you had kind of outlined that for yourself, just very intriguing. So, do you have any tips or pointers for the people on the call on how to set yourself up for something like that?
Okay, so Eileen, I forgive me, I don't remember the exact story that I was telling you, but I'm sure it's very true. So I'm an owner of an engineering firm, but I'm also an investor and a real estate developer. And while I love my engineering firm, and I will continue to help it grow, my passion is in real estate and redevelopment of communities and reinvestment in struggling towns. So here I sit in Pottstown, right? But she mentioned a playbook. My partner and I have figured out how to identify, what we want and how to go after it. And sometimes that's tactical as far as location, but really more it's about an approach and an attitude, and feeding the energy to drive the mission. So I have this engineering firm. It is 30 people. We have a plan. We have a strategic plan how to get it to 50 people in 3 years. And we're going to do that. We have investments here in town. We have a plan on how to bring them to fruition and make a positive impact on revitalizing Pottstown. And I will tell you that things take longer than I think they're going to take. And I'm learning patience, and so, but I will continue to grow in that way. And I can tell you, I'm driven by that focus. I want certain things for my family and for myself, for the families that work for me, and that helps me to focus. And setting out the steps imparts all of those things of learning to shift, having faith, and then continuing to move forward. Just keep advancing. There's going to be many, many challenges, and as long as you're moving, then you're advancing. So did that touch on any of what we talked about?
Sure, yeah, it does. And not to put you on the spot, but I'll keep you on the spot, and then Lisa and Elaine will have a chance to think about it. Are there any daily processes or things that you do on a daily basis that you think help you get to where you need to be? Are you somebody who takes time, a certain amount of time for yourself every day? Is there planning time? Is there meditation? What centers you?
Wow, I wish I could tell you I was more disciplined, but I'm not, and I'm working on. That's something I'm working on. I do think there's value in meditation, and when I remember to do it, and I can schedule it in, which is counterintuitive, but many evenings I will give myself time to just breathe, and that's the simplest form of meditation. But closing my eyes and just breathing instead of doing. So that's an evening thing for me. I used to be very disciplined about getting up and exercising every morning, and I'm looking forward to incorporating that in my life. That gave me tremendous energy. And so I'm looking forward to adding that back. So I do have breakfast every day. I didn't always do that. It's important to me. So that's, and coffee with my business partner, generally every day, for at least a half an hour, recapping the day before, setting the mission, and then breaking it off and going forward. So I am very fortunate that that I have that sounding board. It helps to focus and drive forward. So I think in any of our lives, to have someone that you can bounce ideas off, will be brutally honest, and also shares the same passion. It's been very helpful. So.
Great. Before we go on to Lisa, we'll have some time, because there might be something that somebody says that triggers a question for you later before we end our call, but is there anything specific anybody wants to ask of April right now? Okay.
All right, I'm here all night.
Okay, we'll move on to Lisa next. Lisa Lightcap is Vice President, Commercial Banking and Relationship Manager for Tompkins VIST Bank. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, all three of these women are on the Chamber Board of Directors. April also currently serves as our treasurer. When we move the gavel to our new chairman of the board at the beginning of 2021, April will move up in the ranks, and Lisa comes on as our treasurer at that point in time. So again, I've known Lisa for quite some time. And again, she has an interesting story of how she has progressed through the banking world. So I look forward to you sharing it with us. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thanks for taking the time today. So when I thought about the shift, grow, thrive, to me, shift and grow go together, because in order to grow, you must continue to shift what you're doing. And when I entered the banking world, I'm going to age myself now. In 1986, I was a part-time teller right at High and Hanover Street, where Blue Elephant is today. And I did not know at that time where my career was going to take me. I do not have a college education. It was something that I didn't think that I could do. So I chose not to. I did have that choice. My parents gave me that choice. I learned quickly when I became a part-time teller. I've had several mentors over the years. I've had some men and some women. And obviously, as April is an engineer, we are both in male-dominated zones. And it's still that way, other than in the branching system in banking. And so you have to be your own advocate. You've got to, one of my mentors told me one time, you have to wear the hat of the next job that you want. Do the job that you're in, do it to the very best of your ability, but then start asking the question, well, if I want to go here, what do I need to do to get there? What do I need to learn? You cannot have the attitude that it's not in my job description. You're not going to grow if you have that attitude. You have to want to go above and beyond so that people can see what you're made of. And that is pretty much what I did. I went from part-time teller to a head teller. So I went through all those different stages. And then at one point, I was an assistant manager, and then I was a manager, a cluster manager with 3 branches and 22 employees. That's when I said, okay, let's hold the phone here. Let's slow down a little bit. Learning everything about HR that I did not want to know at that point in my career. But again, you shift, you grow, and you continue to grow through all of that. In 2001, 2002, I went through the leadership tri-county class, which again, even though I had been doing a lot of volunteering and learning things, that was just opened up a whole nother avenue of opportunities and just to get to know other people as well. I was fortunate in the time when I started in banking that the banks had very good training programs. I mean, management training program, you name it, they had it. Well, then by the time I went through a half a dozen mergers and acquisitions. 6 months into my job, we went through the first one. You would have thought that would have told me, okay, maybe you don't want to go this route, but being stubborn and bullheaded, I went ahead and went that route. I did always survive them. I was very fortunate, but not necessarily liked what was on the other side. Then, as Elaine said, came the movement. In order to advance, you kept moving because at this point, the banks were consolidating and it became, okay, who's the best of the best here or there, and let's steal them. So then the training programs all collapsed. And this is a situation, and I'll talk a little bit about that now that the banks are in, because there's nobody coming up behind us, whether it be women, whether it be men, there's no training programs out there. So how do you get further? You've got to find your way and break out of that. And what happened to me in 2003, I had gone through the branching system. I had moved my way up. I had had extensive retail lending training and some commercial training. I was thriving in what I was doing, but I couldn't break out of the branches because every time you would interview, they would see all the skills that you brought with that were all branches and they needed them so desperately, you couldn't move up. You couldn't get out of the branch system. And then I served on the board for the Salvation Army of Boyertown. Salvation Army has always been and still is one of my go-to nonprofits for everything that they do. And I actually was serving on the board at the time, and a position, believe it or not, came open at the Salvation Army, and I applied for it. I actually took a 3-year break from banking. My husband was phenomenal because obviously I took a pay cut. He always supported me in everything that I did. And I felt more that it was a calling for me to do this. I was still using all my financial skills, just in different ways. I was doing, accounts payable, accounts receivable, all that stuff that goes along with it. But then I had the opportunity to learn the social work of everything. I would actually meet with clients of the Army, find out what was going on in their lives. What did they need help with? And what I learned during that time, whether it was a woman, whether it was a man, it was a single parent raising children for whatever reason, they were working, they were trying to do everything right. It's just when the car broke down, that was the last straw, because there were no reserves. And that's where the Army came in, getting people heat when they needed it in the wintertime. And I did some very, very basic budgeting classes for people that would come and meet with me. And, then they would, I would become their check-in point. Okay, so how have you done towards that? And so that was very rewarding for me. And I enjoyed that time very much. And during that time, I also became only the second woman on the deacon board for our church. And I was in charge of women's ministry. So coming full circle and working with Reach and trying to connect with other women, either my age, younger, what can I bring to help these women move up in their career? What can I share that can help you? And as much as I loved being at the Salvation Army, it became very clear to me after 3 years, there was nowhere for me to go in their system without it being a husband and wife duo, which was not, in the cards for us. So I decided to enter back into banking, but I didn't want to be in the branch. So I started applying for back office jobs, kept getting told you're overqualified. Yes, I know I'm overqualified, but I still would like the job. And then the break came at National Pen in the private banking division, something I never even knew existed. And I spent 10 years in that position, working with people that have wealth, doing commercial lending, doing retail lending, doing investments. I mean, the whole 9 yards. It was really the opportunity that I needed to break out of the branch system. And I've continued to do that. I think the best advice that I can give people is you have to be your own advocate. You need a mentor, and you need to let your supervisors know, go to them, tell them, I want a career, but what do I need to do next? What's the next step? And you have to keep doing that. And you may have to do that other job, not get paid for it, maybe not get the accolades, but it will come back to you. And still in banking, commercial lending is still very male dominated. And, I still find myself where I'll be on a call, and now with Zoom, conference calls, everything you're on, and I'll think, why are they saying that? That's not right. But then I won't say anything. So I have to still push myself. I do know what I'm doing, and I make mistakes just like everybody else. So now the point where I am in my career, I love what I'm doing. I have relationships with my customers. Anything I offer, it can get down the road at XYZ Bank. It all comes down to what I can do and what I can bring to the table and prove to them that I know their business and I know what the next step is. And that's the part of my job that I really love, because all the businesses are different. Everything's different. I have manufacturers, I've got nonprofits, I have mom and pop shops. We've got it all, and that's what a community bank's about. And with Tompkins being in downtown Pottstown, obviously they've been committed, and we still are committed. And I'm glad to say the branch itself will be opening back up on Monday with some limitations. But we believe in the community, and we want to be that community bank. We couldn't be the community bank we are if we didn't have a bigger organization behind us, but they let us have that, that we have a president that's local, decisions are made local. We still have all that. And that's really important, because I know what's going on here down on the ground. somebody that be sitting in New York or South Carolina, they're not going to have any idea what's going on in Pottstown. Where's Pottstown? They got to find it on the map. So I guess, and now I'm at a point in my career that I love what I do, but I've seen in banking over the years, now that I'm on the other side of things as I'm aging, I've seen people kind of get stale in their positions and just kind of riding along till retirement. And I'm like, I don't want that to happen. I want to continue to thrive. I want to continue to learn. And because of that, I've reached out and I'm actually interacting with a growth and success coach now, because I want to stay relevant, whether it's another 10 years I work, 15 years, whatever that looks like. So again, you have to think and have a playbook, have a plan. And again, reach out to people. And if you're not getting someone with your supervisor, go to your HR, see what's out there, post for positions that you know you want to be in. And I did that before, even though I knew I wasn't qualified, but got the interview like in an internal interview. And that's great skills for you to be able to learn how to interview and ask the person who's interviewing, what is it that you're looking for in that position? Because that'll give you great insight so that you can grow. And that's the thriving part. You know, you have to be happy with what you're doing and continue to go. And as this COVID-19 has us all, again, with another shift, another way to do business and what that's going to look like. And these Zoom meetings, I mean, this is one of them. Conference calls all the time with customers. I'm not bred this way. I want to be out. I want to be with my customers. I want to be talking to them, going through their manufacturing plant, putting, you know, the earplugs in my ear because all these machines are going off around me. And, you know, when my customers are ready for me to do that, I'll be there and I'll do that. So I'll stop there. And just, Elaine, is there anything else that maybe I didn't touch on?
Well, I have one question. Who's your friend behind you?
Yes, I haven't gotten my clear spot. Yes, that is Miss Stella. She came from Animal Rescue League in Berks County. But yes, that's my stalker behind me. Sorry about that.
No, nothing to apologize for. I just have yet to ask you, and on all the calls that you and I have been on, she's usually there. So
I know. They're hanging out with me. I have 2 cats. They're hanging out. I don't know what they're going to do when I actually go back to the office.
So I do have 2 things to, you know, one, like I asked April, you know, is there anything daily that you try and do to keep yourself centered, or, you know, going back to April's comments about focus, you know, are there any daily tricks or tips that you can provide to our attendees, you know, just to kind of help them, you know, focus or make it through each day?
Well, one thing that, and again, I haven't been very good at it, and since now that I'm working from home, I've been trying to do better. I actually have my daily devotional, and I'm trying to read that in the mornings, because it's just so easy just to sit down at the computer and it's 12 o'clock. And just kind of, you know, give yourself, and, you know, it only has to be 5 or 10 minutes. So I'm really working hard on that. There was a point in my life that I was really dedicated to that and would actually do like a half an hour in the morning, and things change, things happen, whatever. So I'm trying to get some of that back. The other thing that I've been doing, and I've been enjoying the Schoolkill River Walk very much. I've been trying to walk 3 or 4 times a day. And I actually do that with my daughter. And, you know, again, her and I talk a lot, you know, we vent to each other and we have good talks, and you're getting that exercise. So those are 2 things right now that I'm really trying to focus on. Again, where I am in my career without the support of my husband through all of it, through all the changes and all the mergers and acquisitions, wouldn't have happened. So he's been key in that. And my daughter's seen as I've gone through and changes that we've made, and she's had to do some changes as well after she was done with school, with college. So you just have to keep moving forward and keep pushing. And I think as women, and you know what, I don't know if it's ever going to change. I think it's gotten a little better, but I think you just got to push that much harder.
I've just asked you one more thing, if you could touch on it. You know, you mentioned, and I know everybody that's speaking, you know, does the same thing, but you know, you specifically mentioned your customer relationships and, you know, again, knowing your history and your networking capabilities. You know, how do you see that playing into any of the steps you've been able to take, or, you know, how much are those contacts that you've had been helpful or not responsible, but have contributed to, you know, the pivots that you've made in your life?
Absolutely, the networking, getting to know people, staying in contact, that has definitely been a big factor, and how we go forward from here and how we network, you know, whether it ends up being with Zoom meetings or, you know, we don't know how this is all going to happen. But again, like I said, I've had mentors over the years. They've recruited me to go to other banks when they've left and gone to other banks. So, and networking does, and even your customers will say, you know, they'll follow you because they know what you bring to the table. So that's been huge.
Thank you, Lisa.
Well, thank you, everybody, for listening.
Okay, Elaine. Elaine is the Executive Director of the Schuylkill River Greenways National Heritage Area. Sorry, I'm looking at my screen just because I didn't want to miss a word, and it's changed over the years, so I want to make sure I'm using the right title. So Elaine also, as I mentioned, has some political responsibilities that have come right, you know, to fruition right before COVID, and I know she's been dealing with a lot on that front with COVID. So I'm sure this topic and these 3 words have meant a lot of different things to Elaine over the last few months. So welcome, Elaine. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here. And before I start with my little saga, I want to say that both of my co-guests today I'm their client, both of them, and they have helped us immensely. April's engineers are the ones who design our kayak launches and help us with the trail. And Lisa was when you were telling your story about the Salvation Army and helping people out, I was picturing you helping me through that PPP debacle because April's bank helped my nonprofit get a PPP. So you know, this is an interconnected panel here. And thank you both for your help and support. So I right now have 2 jobs, and they both are my dream job. So I am a little bit of a crazy person right now, but I am, as Eileen mentioned, I run a nonprofit called the Schuylkill River Greenways, and we build and maintain and promote the Schuylkill River Trail, which is one of the premier rail trail bicycle transportation venues in the entire region. We also are the state managers of the river. So we do a lot of programming on the river. And our mission is really to connect people and communities to the river and its surroundings and watersheds so that they get a better understanding of how important this natural resource is, and that they themselves want to work to connect with it and protect it and make sure that we keep it healthy. But I took a pretty circuitous route to get here, which really does incorporate the whole theme of shift, grow, and thrive, because I don't usually use the word shift, it's pivot. Like my whole life has been pivot from this, pivot to that, because this way is not gonna work, so pivot, move this way. But I went to law school out of college, and when I finished law school, I first I did a clerkship with a judge, which is what you do out of law school. If, you know, it's like one of those prestigious things to do out of law school. And then I started working with a high-powered law firm in Philadelphia, which I really loved. I thought it was just amazing. I was going to become partner there. I was going to be, you know, a top-notch, tough litigator. And literally within the first year, I got pregnant and didn't plan it. I was married, but I was not a planned pregnancy. So I said, well, that's no big deal. You know, women do this all the time. And I kept working. After I had my first child, I went back to work full time. Everything was going hunky-dory, had a great nanny. And then my mother, with whom I was really, really close, got very ill, fatally ill. And it just threw my life into a complete turmoil. I would literally sit at my desk, and when you're a lawyer, you have to bill in 6-minute increments. So sitting at your desk and doing nothing is like not good. But I would just sit at my desk staring into space, 6 minutes, 12 minutes, 18 minutes. And all I could think about was what my nanny was doing with my baby at that moment. And I suffered like that for a good 6 months. My work quality was probably not great. And I decided, I got to pivot here. This is not going to work for me. I'm going to make a partner some other way, but it's not going to be this way. So I stopped working for a tad, went back and actually helped take care of my mother and had my baby, obviously raising my baby. That lasted for a little while, but I realized that I was not cut out to be a full-time mother. Some people are, some people aren't. I was just not. So I went back to work part-time, and then over the ensuing years went, through various stages of contract work and part-time working, but really with enough time that I felt that I was really with my kids, and I got enough out of that. But I have to be honest, during that period, I don't feel like I did either perfectly. I mean, no one does it perfectly, but I didn't achieve at work is just at the level that I wanted to, and I didn't achieve at home quite at the level that I wanted to. I got by. That lasted for a good long time, 5, 6, 7 years. And then at one point, I stopped working at the law firm altogether, and I got very, very involved in my community in all different issues. But I've always been politically active. I've always felt strongly about certain issues. And, at that point financially, I could take some time off from working, and I got really involved in my community in all kinds of groups. I co-founded a conservancy, a land conservancy that does easements. I was very active in the League of Women Voters. It was me and like 10 80-year-olds who I felt I grew to absolutely love, and learned so much from them. But and then I grew, and I joined all of these groups and became really entrenched in my community. From that, when kids got a little older, they were entering high school, and it was a real crossroads. Do I go back to the law and take that track, which is pretty defined and pretty, you don't really have to be that creative in your thinking. There's a defined path for succeeding in law. Or do I go for it and run for office? Because I was so into my community, and there was so many things I wanted to see happen and change. So I took the chance, I ran for office. I had been involved in some controversial issues in my township at that moment. And I got elected. I was the first, I'm a Democrat, I was the first Democrat to ever get elected. And I flipped the board of my town, which had been Republican since the beginning of time. So it was a very exciting time. I was on that board for 8 years, and we did a lot of change. We literally changed the whole government. And in my passion, we preserved our last farm, which was what had really motivated me to run. So after 8 years, that's 2 terms. I was finished with that. And I decided to run for higher office, and I ran for state representative in Harrisburg. Again, taking on a race that was in the odds were very against me. It would have been very unlikely for me to win, but I thought, I've done it once before, I can do it again. I did not win that race. And it was really sort of an ugly race. I'm sure you all have all seen how ugly political races can get at the local level, and that one got pretty ugly. So I decided to take some time off from that and to go back to the nonprofit world, because I was just ready for a kinder, gentler career at that point after getting so beat up. I put my resume out on the street with all my contacts in the nonprofit world, and especially in the land preservation and natural resource world. And I got about 10 phone calls about this position that I'm in now. And I have to be honest, at that point, I had never heard of this organization, but people kept calling me from all walks saying, you have got to put your name in. This job has you written all over it. And so finally I was like, okay, fine, where the heck is Pottstown? And I and I came out here, I met the board, I learned about the job, and it is my dream job. I love Pottstown. I love the organization. I love what they stand for. The job itself uses all my skills in terms of strategy, of people management, leadership, politics, and dealing with political people and working that system. It's just an amazing job, and what this group does for our communities up and down the river that all need revitalization is amazing. The work is so satisfying. So that was about 3 or 4 years ago. And then last year, I started getting some calls recruiting for me to run for office again. And it was just one of those situations that I could not resist. Again, it's at the next level up, so it's county level. And our county, Delaware County, again, has been under one-party rule since the Civil War. And it was the chance to run with 2 other women and flip the board and just really flip the world. And so I got together with these 2 other women, and we were like, okay, let's go for it. Not really thinking it would happen because it was so out of anybody's expectations. But we worked really hard. The world has really changed. Demographics have changed, and we won. So I won. So I'm on a board now with 5 people and 3 women, which is in politics unheard of. I have always been the only woman in the room. But I'm now that is majority. So fun. We came into office in January and had 6 great weeks. And then COVID happened. So for the last 3 months, it's been tough. It has really taken over everything, just reacting to this crisis and making sure that our businesses and our residents are safe. I feel very proud of the work we've done, but it has been consuming. At the same time, my nonprofit organization has had incredible challenges. And we've had help from our government, from our funders. I will just give you an example of a quintessential pivot. At the very beginning of this, our main outfitter who supplies all of our kayaking, our biking, all of our support, like all of our programming that happens outside, we use an outfitter. And they called us up at the beginning of the mid-March or end of March, and they said that we can't do it. That's it. This COVID is putting us over the edge. We're done. It's not going to happen. And we said, you can't do that. Like, we can't deliver programming without you. So like April said, you got to play offense, not defense in these situations. And we scrambled, we called our funders, we got our board together, and we bought the outfitting business. And what a crazy time to be doing a risky acquisition, but we did it. And actually now it's all set up. It's in Pottstown. We've been in business, open for about 10 days now, and it's going to be a great success and give us the opportunity to deliver our mission exponentially. So it's another example of kind of going with the flow, but seizing the opportunity even when it's totally scary and people are looking at you like you're crazy. So that brings us to where we are today, and navigating this crazy world and trying to adapt and thrive. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
So Elaine, people on the call, I think for the most part, know about our Leadership Tri-County program. When our program was started back in 1993, we incorporated school board meetings that you had to attend, as well as municipal meetings. Those were usually in the evenings, not something we could do during the class. But we wanted to give people exposure to that because the ultimate goal was to hopefully get them out and possibly run for an elected position. There's some other groups, out there that exist specifically for the purpose of directing women, in that path. So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts, where are we headed? Where should we be headed as far as, women in different political roles? Obviously we have a lot more in Congress than we've ever had, or, you know, we're making strides, you know, a little bit like Lisa said, you know, the shift is changing, you know, at least moving a little bit more in favor, you know, but do you have any tips or anything you'd recommend for somebody to, you know, even consider it?
Well, first, to the point of whether we're making progress, sure, we're making progress, but it's still pitiful. There are still more women in the Parliament of Afghanistan than there are in Pennsylvania, percentage-wise. So yes, it feels like we're making progress, especially when in Southeast Pennsylvania, the region that we live in, but it is not that way everywhere in Pennsylvania, and the numbers are still pitiful. It's still around 20%. Which is, I mean, having been in government now for 11 years, so frustrating, because I'm telling you, women are better at governing. They are. So it's very frustrating to be in that situation. In terms of anyone who's interested, I mean, absolutely reach out to other women who have gone through it. I tell this to women and men, the best way for run to office is to know your community and represent your community. It all starts out in the community. It's who you know, it's knowing exactly what the Boy Scouts need and what the library staff is going through. And then you can represent them, and you're authentic. And then people will support you, and they'll support you as you make your way up the rank, because they remember that you were in their community, and that having that constituency makes you a better leader. And it's really the only way to be an authentic leader. So you start small, you know, join the League of Women Voters and join groups and get to know your community. And then take little steps. Start at school board, commissioner, join a volunteer board. It doesn't have to be an elected office. See how your government works and start from there. And then finally, there are plenty of organizations that are designed specifically to invest in women who want to run for office. Now, interestingly, they're partisan. So there are very few organizations that are just for women, period. It's, you know, for Democratic women or for Republican women, which I find that really fascinating, because I feel like my colleagues who are Republican women, I feel just as much affinity with, and we agree on so much more than we disagree on, which is why we're better at governing. But it is the way, you know, joining. There's a really, really big one called Emerge. It's a national organization, but Emerge PA is incredible. They do training. They support you when you're running. Again, it's a partisan group. I'm sure there's the same thing on the other side of the aisle. But those are groups that are, even if you don't have experience, they help you get ready for your first experience. And they're competitive programs, but they are, if you're interested in running for office, and you meet all these other incredible women who become your contacts and your colleagues eventually, which is great.
So one that goes back to the network,
Yes.
Always building the network.
Mm-hmm.
And just to ask you the same question asked of April and of Lisa, is there a daily practice? Is, you know, there's something that you like to, you know, just hold yourself to or commit to keep you grounded or to help you focus, you know, on the next day, and, you know, how you make sure you're successful?
Well, I start out every day, almost every day, but close to every day, with a run. I'm a runner, and it is, it's when I do my best thinking. It's when I set forth my day. It's when if I have a speech to give, or if I have a presentation, I work it out in my head while I run. And honestly, I don't even think about it. It all works. So that honestly, when I have periods, like if I'm sick or if I get an injury and I can't run, I find my performance suffers. So I'm addicted to that. And I'm not like some crazy marathon runner. It's like a couple miles. And then I end every day with a glass of wine. I gotta admit it. It's like, I really find the ritual of getting home and having a glass of wine and relaxing and just shedding. And I really, I don't know what I would do if someone told me you couldn't have your glass of wine at the end of the day. So those are the two things that I start and finish with every day.
Well, no worries. We're like Planet Fitness. This is a judgment-free zone. Everybody has their thing, right? So I want to thank all three of you. We're a couple minutes shy of 3 o'clock. So I do want to give the opportunity, if anybody on our Zoom here today has any questions that they'd like to ask of any three of our presenters, we have a couple minutes for you to be able to do so. Anybody have any questions or comments?
I don't know if anybody can touch any three of you on a point where you feel like as you were growing that you received pushback, and how did you overcome that?
Great question, Lauren.
I absolutely felt pushback. In 2018, I alluded to this, was a very difficult year. I had a predatory raid on my company, which is what that is. A larger company came in and decided to take several of my people and a lot of my clients. And it was a tough time. I went to bed one night during that whole situation, and I was very sure I was going to die in my sleep from stress that night. I was pretty confident there wouldn't be a morning. And then I woke up and the sun came up and I went through another day. So there are going to be those times. And I think there's going to be times amongst us friends on the Reach call is that people think we're vulnerable just because we're women. And that's a driver for me. That just makes me fight harder. So I really think I was attacked because they thought I was vulnerable. And here I am. I'm still here, and I'll win. I'm winning.
And for me, I mean, I'm in politics, so I get pushback every day, and I've learned never to read the Facebook comments and don't read the comments on when they write articles. And you know, you just develop a thick skin and ignore it. Honestly, it's not even worth engaging. You just ignore it, keep focused, and move on.
I have a question as well. So women still earn only about 80 cents on every dollar that men earn in the country, and Pennsylvania is even lower. I think in Pennsylvania, women earn about 78 cents to the dollar that men earn. So as women leaders, what are you doing to change that in your own workplaces? And also, given what's happening in the country with Black Lives Matter and all the inequity that we're seeing, are you doing something intentionally to create a diverse and inclusive workforce?
So this is Lisa. Tompkins Corporation has actually started something within the company, and we have advocates to support that as far as being diversity, you know, with diversity, inclusion, and making sure that our workforce has that and that everybody's on the same page. It's something that the bank is very passionate about. Now, this is something new that has been coming out, and it was before all the riots and everything started. It was like at the end of last year. So the timing is very good with that. I do feel where I am today, I am more valued. I think in my banking career, when I arrived, when National Pen was still here, I felt valued, and I was still earning less than men were. But then at some point, I kept pushing, and you know, my salary at one point went up substantially when I was at National Pen. And then after that merger happened, I went to a smaller bank, which I loved being there, but Tompkins actually came after me. And this is the first time in 30 plus years that a company came back to me and offered me more money than what I asked for. And I cannot tell you as a woman how that made me feel valued, and that drives me to do better for my company as well as for my clients. So I do think it's happening. Do I think it's happening as quick as it should? Probably not. I know when I moved back here to Pennsylvania 35 years ago, I was raised in Southern California. I was the minority in my school. So coming back here 35 years ago, I felt like I stepped back into the 60s. So it's just, you know, it's not just Pennsylvania, it's all over. And, you know, I think if enough people keep stepping up and they get away from the riots and we do the protests the right way and we talk about things the right way and get people to communicate, hate is not something that's bred into you. It's something you learn. And I think Pottstown, you know, is making that turn as well. Are we there yet? No. Is it going to take us a while? Absolutely. But we just, again, we got to keep pushing for that.
April or Elaine have anything they want to add?
Yeah, I'd say for me, in both of my positions, I view this, I mean, this is really tragic and for all of us an emotional time, but I think it is just such a beautiful illustration of our country demanding better, you know, demanding better. And I've seen especially in my position as an elected official, like immediate change, you know, immediate, okay, wait, you know, and the old guard has not pushed back the way they used to. So I do feel like this could actually happen this time. This could be the era where we make significant change. And I've seen it already. And, you know, we've put together task force at the county level, and so the old guard, they are not invited. You know, they're not invited to the table. It's pretty cool. So I'm actually really hopeful, and you know, I find that all of these protests and all of the cognizance that everyone has now is the support we needed as leaders to finally make the changes and have, you know, not be insecure about it and be forceful about it.
I did want to just add to that. I think that's very true. And I'm encouraged by what you say, Elaine. Change is necessary. I think I'm certified women-owned business, a disadvantaged business as well. And in order to get those certifications, I had to humble myself and say and admit the challenges that have been put in front of me, when I've always looked at them as just things to run through or over and aggressively. And never to look in the rear view. I then had to dig them all up and put them on a piece of paper and sign an affidavit and said, this is how I've been discriminated against as a woman in engineering. And then get my finances turned inside out. So Elaine knows this because she's in public service. So she understands what can happen. But, you know, having gone through all of this, I still have people close to me that do not really believe that there's a discriminatory attitude still and that there's still a disparity in pay still. They thought that was, you know, last decade's issues. So to Elaine's point, you know, hopefully this big shift will happen. You know, the extreme behavior shouldn't be, by any organization, should not be encouraged at all, and it should be punished. But the point needs to be heard. And so by those who are respecting the way things happen, but the pressure, you know, obviously built. But you know, even people in my life who have seen my struggles still don't understand. So it's your story, very much so. Just like Lisa talked about advocating for yourself, it's your story. You got to push. You got to demand. You got to point it out, saying that guy down the street doing the same job, putting in 80%, and I'm putting 100%, I deserve. This is what I want. And I think the big shift in the country it's already upsetting my industry. There's people are moving around, and there's opportunities out there, and write your ticket and demand it. And, you know, there's ways to do that, you know, but I think the voices will be heard right now. There's an opportunity to be heard.
And make sure you vote for people who believe in what you
Yeah, very true.
Well, great. I want to thank everybody. It's after 3, so I want to give everybody time to get on with their day. I will thank all of you for joining us, but I also want to thank April, Lisa, and Elaine for dedicating their time and sharing their story with us. Again, I think we all have things we can learn from each other. So, you know, I encourage everybody to stay in contact. You know, if there's something that you think of an additional question or, you know, some additional information on something one of these 3 women stated today would be helpful to you. You know, I can pretty much guarantee that any one of them would be fine with me passing along their contact information. So, you know, feel free to reach out, you know, if it's a conversation you'd like to have that goes a little deeper. You know, and again, if the chamber can be of assistance to you right now, please don't hesitate to reach out. We do have a virtual networking scheduled for tomorrow from 4:30 to 5:30. You know, I think the interesting thing about Zoom that I've told people is, you know, it's actually a little bit more, it's a little more interactive doing it through Zoom because you get a chance to meet everybody. If you walk into a business card exchange, you're not always all there at the same time, and you get stuck talking to a group of people that you might already know and have relationships with, you know, so this does give you the opportunity to really meet some new faces and just kind of build those community relationships or relationships in your chamber community. So if you haven't already, please feel free. There's still time to sign up before I send out the Zoom instructions tomorrow. Again, just thank you everybody for your time. I look forward to seeing you again soon. And please, again, reach out if you want to connect with any of our speakers or with the chamber and if we can be of any assistance. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Elaine.
Enjoy.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.